talking about leagues, talking about different teams playing elsewhere, we did tease Wrexham, who had a big 3-2 win today against Notts County. They were both tied on top of the table. There's only one spot for promotion, which really adds some intrigue and pressure, and they got the job done. But we talked off camera, and you brought up a good point about how they're spending about, 5-6 times more money than everybody else. Yeah. And so it kind of gets them out of that underdog story and into more, maybe an underdog story as it pertains to trying to compete with the Premier League clubs, right? But within their own league, they are the Man Cities, let's say, where they're spending more money than absurd amounts of money to try to get into where they want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Sure you don't. Just tell us what you know, Keith.
I don't know enough to like criticize the model that they have, but I do know that they are spending and have been spending on the high end, right? Which is a high risk situation. If you spend and don't get the results, right? They've just moved into first place with 4 games to go. That's the automatic what's the PPV? Pay-per-view?
Pay-per-view model. Because right now, if you wanted to watch that game live today, you could go to Wrexham's website and pay $10, or you can go to the National Football League's website and pay $10 to watch that. And so they to Dan Kane's comment, they've created that model because that's what Ryan Reynolds, within a year of owning the team, maybe less than that, he's like, how can people not watch our games if they want to watch it? Why is it so hard for that to happen? And so they've made some noise and created a model to make that happen. Now, is it because they're massive celebrities? Probably. That probably helped move the needle a little bit and bring more visibility to this particular issue. But not every club's going to have that luxury. And so I think what was interesting is I feel like I'm throwing you under the bus, but where you said it loses some of its romanticism because it's not like a straight underdog story when they're spending that type of money. And I think there's some truth to that I think needs to at least be discussed.
Yeah. No, I think that's spot on. They are. I honestly don't know enough to say what I know what the long-term goals or ambitions are of the club.
It's got to be the Premier League, right? I don't know if I've heard Ryan and Rob mention,
right?
But I assume
I see some comments in here where like they're bringing exposure to the National League, and I'm like, but what exposure does the National League want or need? Right? That's one club that's getting the attention, and how they're doing it is getting the attention. What I would love to know is just sort of what how that's going to improve the National League. One, maybe it's the pay-per-view model, but that model in itself, I think, only applies to when there is a global or a larger, I guess, locally you'll sell that to people because they want to watch the games, right? If they can. But to the rest of the world, there has to be an appeal to it. And I think Wrexham's doing a good job of creating that global or at least US or regional appeal in North America to why you should watch. Now, what I think is different though is like you're going to watch now, right? You're going to watch because there's 4 games left. You might pay to see if they're going to be able to go on and do it. But I'm not watching Wrexham all season long at a pay-per-view model because one, I don't care, right? And the quality is not a product that I want to entertain or watch. It's sometimes it can be a really rough watch. So there is windows of time like now where there is a real excitement to what they're doing and what they're building. And I think that's where you really get the Americans involved to wanting to support, right? Because otherwise, National League, you're talking about local support, which is an amazing history in the UK. And so for me, it's just about where they go from here and what the model is. I would love to see a report on all of that. I'm sure there's stuff out there, but yeah, I don't know much about it. But I think anything that they're doing to help grow the game in a different way in the US, I think is a welcomed.
Do you think that it is growing the game? I mean, it's creating visibility. Now, we had someone in the comments, Ron, who really told us how he felt. He's like, I hate Wrexham. I hate all the new plastic Wrexham fans, and I hope they don't get promoted. So tell us how you really feel, Ron. But I guess if you're local to that, or if you're not into, obviously hopping on the bandwagon is probably the best way to say it. It is still raising the visibility of the game and how powerful the game can be when it brings people together, which is what we're drawn to, right? The sense of community. This is what we love about the podcast. We have a whole bunch of people here that love the game, that love the sport, and just want to talk about it and discuss it. And that's really impactful, I think, for lives to be able to be a part of something bigger than yourself. And I think Wrexham has done a good job of that. And obviously Rob and Ryan have leaned into the media side, the entertainment side of what they know and what they're good at, and have really taken it to the next level. And I just feel like there are other clubs, let's just bring it to MLS clubs that could potentially do something similar. Now, they're not going to have the same history as Wrexham, so that's a little bit different. You're not going to have some guy who left his pub to his son. Like, we're just not there yet, right? We're only 29 years into the MLS history, I should say. The game's been around the country for a long time, which makes me wonder why the Open Cup isn't championed enough in this particular. That's one of my questions, because that does have the history, that does have so many incredible stories to share and to get out there. So in terms of visibility, I think it has done a good job of at least people talking about the sport, right? Very similar in some ways from an MLS perspective when David Beckham showed up. Like, people were talking to me about David Beckham nonstop when he signed with the Galaxy. It was insane. I'm like, wow, we finally become a water cooler topic. People have an opinion on something happening in MLS. And I think that's pretty special. And I think Wrexham has kind of cracked that nut as well. What do you think about the visibility here in the US? And I assume that impact is positive, but there are some that we've seen Jim Curtin with regard to Ted Lasso think that maybe some of these things that are some stereotypes that are being perpetuated aren't necessarily a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great. I think it's a unique story. You know, the sustainability of that's going to be based on their ability to be competitive, right? Last year, it was a dramatic ending that kept them in the same league again. And now they've got to go and spend the same amount of money. I was actually reading this Athletic article about just sort of like, you got to be willing to foot that bill every year. There's a high risk in that, and there's an excitement around it. And they've earned some incomes from streaming, and you got documentaries, and they got all these other ways in which you can drive new income into a club that are unique to these celebrities, right? That not everyone's going to have the same charm or access to something like that can drive awareness to the club, build the brand with the club. They're coming on this tour now, and they're setting up games with a whole bunch of teams.
That's
they're playing
right.
in
I forgot
they
were coming to the US this summer. That's right.
Yeah, they're coming in the summer. They're playing big games. They're playing in the soccer tournament, the 7v7, probably play against your team.
I hope, listen, the group draw for that $1 million take all 7v7 tournament that I'm a part of, me and DeMarcus Beasley have a team together. I hope we draw Wrexham in the group stages. Anyway, okay. Keep going, Heath.
When is that draw?
The draw is May 4th. May the 4th be with you, everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Yeah, and so I think again the wages are probably higher. Than everybody else in the league. So you're taking risks over and over again. I kind of like that idea of going for it when there's a plan in place. But I think the story is great because it gives us something to talk about, gives people something to talk about, a different way in which you can approach the game. I've always dreamed of having, not necessarily the way in which Wrexham are doing it, but I would love to think about the Central Valley and where I grew up, right? I was talking to USL for a long time about Modesto or Stockton or Turlock or Merced and these markets that, you know, what is the community aspect that's focusing on driving the community together and being able to be impactful and leave the community better than you found it. Won't have the national appeal. No one's going to care about where I grew up, but I could care about where I grew up and having an impact. And I like what that does for the game and gives people a different level of sort of ownership and connection to a community in ways that are different. So what they're doing is truly unique, but time will tell sort of what the overall impact is. But them using their celebrity to grow it, them using their access to grow it, I think is a fantastic thing. Even if it's not, like you said, this or like I said before, this like romantic story about, you know, we take over this thing that's in dire condition, and then they just magically create this heroic thing, right? They're spending to grow in the way.
I think that's maybe that's the underdog side of it that that I'm not linking automatically. We're kind of just looking at on the field, but off the field, it does feel kind of underdogish. Like, hey, okay, you got these owners, they're willing to spend, they're trying to be thoughtful about how they spend, and they want to build something special, but there's no guarantee that it'll work.
Right.
And I guess that
they could have chucked their name into something big and just been like, oh yeah, I'm an owner, I'm part of an ownership group and blah, blah, blah. I've been a passive owner. Right. But this seems to be, pretty hands-on. When they had their big game last year, my neighbor here, who my kids go to school with, grew up with Rob, and he invited them out. And he's like a big Philly sports fan, all Philly. But all of a sudden he was on a plane to go to England to see this game as a close friend that he grew up with, who I don't think otherwise would have probably been, he is Flyers, Phillies, Eagles, and that's it. That's kind of a cool thing to see that conversion on some level.
No, for sure, 100%. And I think that's how you make inroads, right? And then hopefully that guy's like, hey, I want to go to LAFC game, or I want to go to a Galaxy game, or wherever he lives. I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of where it starts. You got to give him that gateway drug. And if Wrexham's that gateway drug for some people, then more power to him, and fair play to Ryan and Rob for establishing that and making it feel very, very special. Though I do want to say that they could have been an owner, and you didn't want to say his name, but LeBron James just took a stray here. Okay. I know that he's not, he's part of Liverpool's ownership group, but he's not really out there making.
He probably put a lot of money into Liverpool. They just did that Liverpool kit, and he's going to make a lot of money when Liverpool sell that club. Like, that is a smart, like, he's LeBron James. Like, he puts his name on something, it's going to have an impact. But for this, by the way, one of the stats that I just read and take it for what it is from The Athletic says the current playing budget at Wrexham is closely guarded, but some National League rivals believe it has climbed north of £3 million and potentially as high as £3.5 million, which some clubs in League One do not even spend that much on a wage bill.
There you go. Hey, you want to be the best, you got to get the best. You know what I'm saying, Heath?